You've been living a lie. Every morning you wake up and put on the mask of who you think you should be. You practice your smile in the mirror, rehearse conversations that haven't happened yet, calculate the perfect response to questions nobody has asked. You've turned yourself into a walking performance piece, desperate for applause from an audience that isn't even watching, and you wonder why you feel so empty, why connection slips through your fingers like water, why the harder you try to be magnetic, the more people seem to drift away from you. The truth is brutal and liberating. Every technique you've learned about charisma, every confidence hack you've memorized, every moment you spent trying to optimize your personality, it's all been moving you in the wrong direction. You've been trying to build magnetism like you're constructing a building, adding piece by piece, layer by layer. When magnetism isn't something you create, it's something you reveal. It's something you've been covering up with your endless attempts to be impressive. You think presence is about what you add to yourself, but it's actually about what you subtract. Every time you try to be charming, you move further from charm. Every time you attempt to be interesting, you become more boring. Every time you perform confidence, you broadcast insecurity. The magnetic people you admire, the ones who seem to effortlessly command attention without asking for it, they're not doing more than you. They're doing infinitely less. They've discovered the secret that will change everything for you. The most powerful presence emerges, not from trying to be someone, but from finally stopping the exhausting project of trying to be anyone at all. Look at yourself right now. Really look. How many hours have you spent today monitoring yourself, adjusting your posture when you remembered you were slouching, modulating your voice when you caught it sounding uncertain, editing your words before they left your mouth, crafting responses designed to create a specific impression rather than express a genuine thought? You've become a full-time employee of your own image management company, and the job is killing you. This constant self-surveillance isn't making you more attractive, it's making you invisible. When you're always watching yourself, you can't be present with others. When you're constantly calculating your next move, you miss the actual moment. When you're performing confidence, you're not being confident. You're being an actor playing the role of a confident person, and everyone can sense the difference between the real thing and the imitation. The exhaustion you feel isn't from living too intensely, it's from not living at all. You've replaced authentic existence with elaborate performance, and performance is the enemy of presence. Every ounce of energy you spend trying to control how others see you is energy stolen from actually being someone worth seeing. Every moment you spend crafting the perfect version of yourself is a moment you're not spending being yourself. People are tired of perfect people. They're bored by flawless presentations. They're repelled by calculated charm because it feels like manipulation, and it is manipulation. You're trying to manipulate people into liking a version of you that doesn't even exist. No wonder you feel disconnected. No wonder relationships feel hollow. You're not connecting with people, you're connecting them with your performance, and performances always end. The ancient Stoics understood something that we've forgotten in our age of personal branding and social media optimization. Marcus Aurelius wrote about being rather than seeming, about the futility of living for the opinions of others, who are themselves living for the opinions of others. But we've twisted his wisdom into another performance technique, another way to seem wise rather than be wise. True magnetism isn't about being good at being someone else. It's about being excellent at being yourself. But here's what no one tells you. Being yourself isn't a skill you learn. It's a prison you escape. You don't need to become more authentic. You need to become less artificial. You don't need to add genuineness to your personality. You need to subtract the fakeness that's been suffocating it. The magnetic person isn't performing authenticity. They've simply stopped performing altogether. They've given up the exhausting task of being impressive and discovered the effortless power of being real. They've realized that the game of trying to be liked by everyone is a game where everyone loses, including the people who like you for reasons that have nothing to do with who you actually are. When you finally understand this, when you really grasp that your attempts to be magnetic have been making you repulsive. Something inside you breaks, and that breaking is the beginning of everything. Because you can't build authentic presence on top of artificial foundations. You have to let the fake structure collapse completely before the real thing can emerge from underneath. There's a particular quality that magnetic people possess, something you've probably noticed but never named. They're comfortable with emptiness. While you're desperately filling every silence with words, every pause with nervous energy, every moment of potential awkwardness with frantic activity, they're sitting calmly in the void. They're not afraid of the spaces between thoughts, the gaps between words, the moments when nothing is happening. This isn't a technique they learned. It's a fear they lost. They lost the fear of being boring, the terror of awkward silence, the panic of not knowing what to say next. And in losing these fears, they discovered something remarkable. Emptiness isn't empty. Silence isn't silent. The spaces between your thoughts aren't vacant. They're full of potential, full of presence, full of the very magnetism you've been chasing through all your performances. You fill silence because you're afraid of what might be revealed in the quiet. You're afraid that without your constant commentary, your endless entertainment value, your perpetual performance, people will see that there's nothing there. But this fear is backwards. The silence doesn't reveal your emptiness. It reveals your fullness. The quiet doesn't expose your lack of substance. It allows your actual substance to emerge. Think about the most magnetic person you know. Notice how they pause before speaking. Notice how they let conversations breathe. Notice how they don't rush to fill every gap with noise. They've learned to trust the space between things, to let moments unfold without forcing them into predetermined shapes. They've discovered that presence isn't about occupying every second with content. It's about being so comfortable with yourself that you don't need content to feel secure. This comfort with emptiness extends beyond conversation. They're comfortable with not knowing what's going to happen next. They're at peace with uncertainty, with ambiguity, with the unknown parts of themselves and others. While you're frantically trying to control and predict and manage every interaction, they're surfing the unpredictability of human connection. They've realized that magnetism doesn't come from having all the answers. It comes from being genuinely curious about the questions. The void you're afraid of isn't an absence of something important. It's the presence of everything you've been too busy to notice. When you finally stop running from emptiness, when you finally sit still in the silence, you'll discover that the magnetic force you've been seeking has been there all along, waiting patiently beneath all your noise. You have a narrator in your head, and it's destroying your life. Right now, as you read these words, there's a voice commenting on them, judging them, relating them to your personal experience, planning what you'll think about next. This voice never stops. It's always talking, always analyzing, always positioning you as the observer of your own existence rather than the participant. This internal commentator is the death of presence. You can't be fully here when part of you is always somewhere else, narrating what's happening here. You can't be magnetically present when you're simultaneously watching yourself be present, grading your performance, noting how well you're doing at being present. The very act of self-observation creates a split, a fracture between who you are and who you think you are. And that fracture is what people sense when they feel like they're not really connecting with you. The magnetic person has killed this narrator, not through violence or suppression, but through simple disinterest. They've stopped finding their own thoughts fascinating. They've stopped believing that their mental commentary is important or necessary or true. They've realized that the voice in their head is not them, it's just noise, and noise that prevents them from hearing the actual music of existence. When you finally silence this internal critic, when you stop being fascinated by your own mental processes, something extraordinary happens. You become available to the present moment in a way you've never been before. You become available to other people in a way that feels like magic to them, because so few people are ever really available. Most people are always partially absent, always somewhere else in their heads, always performing for their internal audience. This is why children are naturally magnetic before society teaches them to be self-conscious. They haven't yet developed the internal narrator that separates them from their experience. They don't watch themselves being happy. They just are happy. They don't observe themselves being curious. They just explore. They don't perform being present. They simply exist in the moment. And that pure existence is magnetically attractive to anyone who remembers what it feels like to be fully alive. The death of your inner narrator isn't a loss. It's a homecoming. You're not losing an important part of yourself. You're losing the thing that's been keeping you from yourself. You're not becoming less intelligent or less self-aware. You're becoming more directly aware, more immediately present, more magnetically real. Here's what nobody wants to admit. You're attractive exactly as you are, flaws and all, not despite your imperfections, but because of them. Your shadows, your contradictions, your messy humanity. These aren't bugs in your system that need to be fixed. They're features that create the complex, interesting, relatable presence that draws others to you. But you've been taught to hide them, to present only your polished surfaces, to show only your acceptable parts. This selective self-presentation is what makes you feel fake, because it is fake. You're not a curated Instagram feed. You're a complete human being with light and dark, strength and weakness, wisdom and confusion all mixed together in a way that's uniquely yours. When you try to edit out the uncomfortable parts, you don't become more attractive, you become more boring. You become predictable, sanitized, safe in a way that's deeply unattractive. People don't connect with your strengths. They connect with your humanity. They don't fall in love with your successes. They fall in love with how you handle your failures. They're not drawn to your perfection. They're drawn to your reality. But you've been so afraid of being rejected for who you really are that you've prevented anyone from ever meeting who you really are. The magnetic field you create when you accept your contradictions is unlike anything artificial charm can produce. It's the difference between a polished mirror and a natural landscape. The mirror shows only what you want to see. The landscape shows everything, and that everything is beautiful in its completeness, its authenticity, its refusal to be anything other than what it is. Your flaws don't make you less lovable. They make you relatable. Your struggles don't make you less attractive. They make you human. Your imperfections don't diminish your magnetism. They create it, because when you're comfortable with your whole self, others feel permission to be comfortable with their whole selves around you, and that mutual comfort creates a connection that goes deeper than any superficial attraction. Stop trying to be the perfect version of yourself. Start being the real version of yourself. The perfect version is a fantasy that no one can actually connect with. The real version is a living, breathing, complex human being that others can fall in love with, argue with, grow with, and be genuinely attracted to. Your body carries wisdom that your overthinking mind has forgotten. When you're genuinely present, when you're not performing or calculating or managing impressions, your nervous system settles into a different frequency. Your breathing naturally deepens. Your movements become more deliberate, less reactive. Your voice carries a different quality, not the manufactured confidence you practice, but the authentic groundedness of someone who isn't trying to prove anything. This physiological shift creates what you might call an energetic signature. It's not mystical or supernatural. It's the basic biology of a nervous system that's not in a state of chronic performance anxiety. When you stop trying to manage how others perceive you, your body stops broadcasting the frequency of desperation, of neediness, of someone who requires external validation to feel okay about themselves. People feel this shift before they understand it intellectually. They sense that you're not performing for them, not trying to extract anything from them, not using them as mirrors to reflect back an image of yourself that you need to feel complete. This creates a rare experience for them. They can relax around you. They don't have to manage your emotions or feed your ego or participate in your performance. They can just be themselves. The magnetic field this creates is subtle but powerful. You become safe to be around because you're not energetically demanding anything from anyone. You're not a black hole of need, trying to suck validation from every interaction. You're not a performer, requiring an audience. You're just a human being existing in your own space, comfortable with your own energy, and that comfort is contagious. This isn't about suppressing your emotions or becoming emotionally flat. It's about your emotions becoming authentic responses to real situations rather than reactions to imagined judgments from others. When your emotional life is guided by internal truth rather than external approval, everything about your presence changes. You become magnetic, not because you're trying to attract people, but because you've finally stopped repelling them with your need for their approval. Magnetic presence isn't about being interesting to everyone. It's about being completely present with the people and moments you choose to engage with. You've been scattering your attention like seeds in barren soil, hoping that if you spread yourself thin enough, something somewhere will grow. But magnetism doesn't work through quantity. It works through intensity. It works through depth. It works through the focused application of your complete attention to what actually matters to you. When you try to be appealing to everyone, you become appealing to no one. When you try to be interesting to every person,